Okay, folks, I'm going to hand over to wonderful Anna in a second, but just to say, like, Oasis South Bank is a great place for us to be hosting this inaugural conference. This is really where the kind of Steplab origin story began. Josh has been working here for many years. I visited here, I think, first about 6 years ago and saw Josh walking around with this little, like, laminated piece of card that had a bunch of steps on it. And I was like, what is that? And he told me this vision of, oh, I've got these, like, broken down teaching into all these little tiny steps, and we're going to try and get people to, like, work on them together individually. And that was the real start. And from then, it's just been an exciting journey where we've seen this stuff really start to take hold and make a positive difference. And Oasis South Bank serves some of the toughest kids from some of the most impoverished backgrounds in London, and does an amazing job for them, gets some great results, and creates some really important opportunities for them. I think, like, was it 10% of your year 13s got offers to Oxbridge last year? Absolutely fantastic. And one of the reasons it's so successful is because it's led by the amazing Anna Richardson. So please give her a round of applause. Anna Richardson.
Thanks, Peps. That's just not true in any way at all. The reason it's amazing is because everyone that works here. But thank you for having me, and welcome to Oasis Academy South Bank. It is really, really brilliant to have you here. As Pep said, I'm Anna. I am the very proud principal of the school. And as Pep said, I am also very, very nervous. Despite standing here every single morning presenting to a reasonably full auditorium, this feels so much more intimidating. But the only reason I agreed to do it, is because at South Bank we are extraordinarily proud of the links that the school has with Steplab and with Powerful Action Steps and with Josh himself. And we take every opportunity we possibly can to sort of fangirl style regale people with the fact that, did you actually know that Steplab started here? And you know Josh? Yeah, he's my mate. So we do take a lot of pride in that, and we are very, very, very proud of the fact that Powerful Action Steps was originally written here. And the reason that we're so proud is because we have a fundamental belief that instructional coaching is an incredibly powerful tool, and in my opinion, the most powerful tool that schools can use. And I have huge gratitude to Josh for creating an amazing, thorough, intuitive, professional platform by which we can implement that in our schools. It was interesting that Pep said, because I remember really, really clearly when Josh first presented Powerful Action Steps. They weren't powerful at the time. Powerful's branding. They were just action steps. But he presented them, and I remember it really clearly. They were powerful, sorry. I just meant they weren't called Powerful Action Steps. They weren't. I'm about to tell you that they were already powerful. They just weren't branded yet. And he presented it in a CPD, a September CPD, and I just presented on what I thought was a really, really great 45-minute CPD on our new duty rota, and I'd spent a really, really long time, and you might be lucky enough to see the duty rota around the school. It's a work of art, and I'd spent most of my summer planning for how every millimetre of the school, of this ridiculous school building that you'll also see, could be covered, and I'd sat down to a somewhat less rapturous applause than I thought I deserved for the work of art that I'd created in our duty rota, and up stepped Josh. And Josh had come from teaching in Thailand, and he was going to take over as head of teaching and learning. And teaching and learning at South Bank was really good. South Bank was founded by the amazing Carly Mitchell, who'd ingrained really, really great processes. We had great consistency, we had great drop-in culture. So we all had little checkbooks with that carbon paper, and we went into each other's classrooms regularly, and we gave feedback. So I was thinking, well, I wonder what Josh is going to say. And he pulled out this directory of, in my head it was like 300 action steps, but I'm not sure how many were actually on there. A directory that he'd written of hundreds of incremental action steps, so that when we went into people's classrooms and we filled in these checkbooks, instead of giving them some nice praise and something that they could think about, we were actually giving them something really, really tangible that they could do. And we were taught at that time how to identify the most fundamental steps. So we wouldn't start there, we'd start there, and unless they nailed that, we wouldn't get to there. And it will come as no surprise to those of you that know Josh's absolute sort of dedication to teacher education that he had, as Pep said, laminated each single one of those booklets by himself. And he'd also arranged for a hook to be drilled into the corner of every classroom so that we could hang said booklet on a hook as we walked into the classroom. So there was no excuse at any point not to have your directory ready to go. And as Josh explained this very early analog version of Steplab to us, there was a real palpable excitement in the classroom, because I think we realized that even though things were going really well, this was something that was going to take us even further. And needless to say, his applause was rapturous, and he got the applause that I was waiting for, because it was obvious that this approach was going to allow us to have a whole school improvement cycle of continuous improvement all of the time, which was going to be crucial for us in delivering our vision for the students. And it was a pivotal moment at South Bank, and it's the one that I credit with being responsible for our whole school culture. We have a pillar of staff culture of getting a little bit better every day, which permeates everything we do, not just for teaching staff, but for every member of staff in the school. And that, I think, is rooted from that one day where Josh launched that. I trained to teach about 14 years ago, and probably like some of you, when I trained to teach after my induction year, I went into a twice yearly observation cycle, and I remember really clearly one set of feedback, perhaps in my third or fourth year, and I was awful at teaching, really bad, where they said, you need to differentiate more. And I was like, oh, okay, good. And so I then... There wasn't a system in school whereby I was shown what that looked like, where that was broken down. I was told what I could do about that. So I went away and I did what I understood differentiation to be. And for each activity in every single lesson I taught, I created 3 separate worksheets. And I printed them on red, yellow, and green, because then everybody would know that I was differentiating. And that was my feedback, and that was my action. And as a result, the reprographics team. Do you remember? Anyone remember when we used to have reprographics teams? They were fun. They hated me. I was drowning. I couldn't possibly keep up with the workload, but more importantly, the children in my classroom weren't learning. And actually, crucially, the adults or the senior leadership team who had given that feedback to me didn't have any mechanism or tool to know that the feedback that they'd given to me hadn't landed and wasn't being implemented. So they didn't know that that feedback wasn't having an impact on the children. And then I compare that to where we are now and the fortunate position we're in, and I think about conversations that I've had this week with my teaching and learning lead, Dave, who's here today, where we've talked about a particular ECT, and we say, let's just go through where they're at. And with one click of a button, we can pull up exactly what action step they're working on, how long they've been on that for, what they were on before, and how long it's taken them to progress through that sequence. We can do some analytics to make sure that we know exactly what their fundamental areas of need are, so we can think about how that feeds into next year's CPD. I can see what precise praise they've been given this week and who they've given precise praise to. I can even watch short video clips of their practice that their coach has taken to help to understand or unpick in their coaching session a little bit more. And the stark contrast between my experience in teaching and where we are now with that feels incredibly exciting, because we know the impact that that's going to have on so many different areas of the school, but most importantly and crucially, and something I haven't talked about yet, the impact on our young people. We know that our children deserve the very, very best quality of education, and it's only through approaches like that that they're going to get it. It's been a really difficult couple of years in education, and I have like huge admiration and appreciation for you all being here today, because you weren't told you had to be here today, and you're giving up a hot Saturday at the end of an exhausting year. I think that's the right place. I think this is the right place for us to be here today, because I think that when I think about what keeps me up at night at the moment as a head teacher, and I think about the teacher recruitment crisis that's impending or ongoing, and I think about the struggle that we have to retain teachers when we're competing against an ever more flexible job market outside of education, it's obvious to me that to make this profession that we know is the best profession in the world and the best job in the world, we're going to have to be really relentless and focused and innovative in making teacher education really, truly great, not just for those people coming into the classroom, but throughout teachers' careers, so that teachers can have long, happy, successful and impactful careers in education. So by putting high quality and consistent and supportive teacher CPD front and centre, I think by recognising teaching as a performance profession where we recognise, we cultivate, we grow, we celebrate expertise, we're going far deeper than creating really great teachers. I think we're working really hard together to make teaching a really well-respected profession of choice, and we know that that's what it deserves to be, and we know that that's what our young people deserve. So I'm going to pass back to Peps, but last thought from me. If you're not using instructional coaching in your schools yet, I really highly recommend that you do so. If you would like any help, if it's something that you're really interested in, but you haven't yet had that conversation with your principal, please do talk to me. If you'd like me to convince them to buy into the Steplab program, and if they won't buy into the Steplab program and they won't do instructional coaching, then come and work here at Oasis South Bank. Josh, thank you so much for building Steplab. Thank you for ingraining instructional coaching into the fabric of the school. I look forward to meeting you all later and learning from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Great to hear a bit of that origin story.